for Hispanics here in Florida.
Okay, Anthony, for the moment, thank you very much for that analysis. Jane, we're going to go to New York and speak to Capri. She's a former Democratic member of the Ohio Senate. Capri, good to see you. I want to talk about the... Where are you? Yeah, I don't know if you've got Capri. We're going to talk while we try and find Capri, Jane. I think she's just gone away for a second. I just want to go back to that point you were making with Anthony about Elizabeth Warren. Oh, Capri is there. All right, well, let's talk to Capri, who is now on our screens. Capri, lovely to see you. Sorry for the hesitation there. I want to talk to you about an incident last night in the midst of this debate, which really struck me as a British viewer. And it was the moment that they were talking about healthcare. The moderator asked the 10 candidates whether or not they had private healthcare and whether they would be prepared to give up that healthcare if there was a Medicare for all plan. Just take a look.
Who here would abolish their private health insurance in favor of a government-run plan? Just a show of hands, start off with. All right, well...
Just two of them, Capri. And the reason I wanted to pick that up is because there's a problem here for the Democrats. They've got to appeal to the progressives in the party, and we saw Elizabeth Warren and Bill de Blasio there putting their hands up. But the rest of them kept their hands down because they know, among moderate swing voters, there's a lot of private healthcare plans.
That's right. I mean, look, the United States is actually, predominantly based on private health insurance, employer-based health insurance in particular, and Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, it has a significant portion that is based on private health insurance plans providing coverage. So, basically anyone that is trying to say that they are advocating for Medicare for all would subsequently also be advocating for a full dismantling of the current system as it exists in the United States, which would displace millions of Americans and their system, which is, in stark contrast, certainly to the United Kingdom system and the NHS. But this is a very interesting issue because it is one that actually has a nuance and differentiates between the candidates on the Democratic side. Usually in primaries, you're dealing within a party, not in between parties. So the differences between candidates are not nearly as defined as between Democrats and Republicans, for example. But on this issue of health care, and there are a few other issues as well, but this one, I think in particular, we are going to continue to see that contrast between the more progressive members that are running for president on the Democratic side versus maybe the more traditional or moderate members that are taking a more cautious approach towards health reform, focusing on affordability and access rather than dismantling the system for a single-payer health care program, which, frankly, just to be clear to the British viewers, how these candidates define Medicare for all is actually very different. There's a number of different bills out there that are structured differently to attack this issue.
Yeah, you're right to say there are other issues. One of the things that strikes me when you listen to the progressive base, and it is very loud, the progressive base within the Democratic Party, is that they're talking about taxes on the rich, taxes on the wealthy. There's almost a suspicion of wealth creation, which is new in American politics because it's a capitalist society, and there hasn't been that suspicion in America before.
I think one of the reasons why this is coming up is because there is this sentiment and this sort of pervasive feeling amongst many Americans, whether you're progressive or not, that the American dream is now somehow outside of the reach, that, this is a generation that is not going to do better than the generation before them, that the children or grandchildren are not going to have the same kind of economic opportunities and growth, and the meritocracy of the United States is not as robust as it has been in previous generations. We're not seeing as much, actual wage growth, for example, even though we have a strong, unemployment numbers. So I think that's one of the reasons why people are latching on to this. But I do think that particularly, for example, this isn't just about, the ultra rich versus, the working class. This is also about small business people that are making a good living, that care about taxes, care about being able to create jobs, and I think are leery about what does it mean? How are these people defining quote unquote rich? And that is a little bit different.
But Capri, how do you then account for the fact that the majority of voters, including Democrats, think that the economy is on the right tracks? How is your or the Democratic vision of a bad economy going to attract voters from Donald Trump?
Look, I'm not necessarily saying that the economy is in the slump. I don't necessarily believe that, but I do think that there is a sentiment amongst some Americans, and frankly, actually, Donald Trump preyed upon this or played upon it in 2016 to those individuals from my part of the country in the United States, the industrial Midwest, very similar to the Black country and the Midlands in the United Kingdom, maybe even parts of Wales that had been left behind and because of the steel industry and the coal industry that had dissipated over the last 40 years. And Donald Trump appealed to those people saying, the opportunities have left you behind. People aren't listening to you. We're going to renegotiate trade deals. And so it's that kind of sentiment that people feel as if they're being left behind. It's more of a feeling than maybe it is a tangible economic chart. And I think that, President Trump would be smart to continue to focus, or actually, frankly, focus more on the economic successes in the United States than he is. But I think he's going to have some challenges as well with the impending trade wars and tariff issues that we may be facing with China, as well as, some other issues hanging in the balance between Mexico.
And Capri, Kafara, thank you very much. Of course, we will be talking about those very issues later on.